Ethan Carter had never expected his day to begin with an alien princess asking him to act as her husband. Yet, here he was, standing in the grand docking bay of the Valian space station, staring at the most elegant alien he had ever seen, trying not to let his surprise show. The Valians were taller than humans, with slender frames, luminous blue skin, and eyes that reflected the light in a way that seemed almost liquid. They were known throughout the galaxy for their strict customs and ceremonial ways, and humanity was still considered a young, inexperienced species. Ethan, as a human engineer and part-time diplomat, had been sent to represent Earth in the Interstellar Conference, but nothing in his training had prepared him for this. "Please," said the princess, her voice musical but firm. "I cannot board the ship without a husband by my side. The Council's laws are clear. I have no choice." "You want me to be your husband?" And yet he realized quickly that refusing could have consequences, not just for him but for humanity's image in the galaxy. The Valians were one of the most influential empires. If he could help, even in this bizarre way, he could make a mark. I suppose I could," he said cautiously, "but only if we're very clear that this is temporary." "Thank you, human. You will not regret this." As they approached the ceremonial hall, Ethan noticed the sheer scale of the ship waiting for them. It was massive, almost impossibly so, its hull gleaming under the docking lights, and he could see the subtle hum of energy coursing through its outer panels. A part of him marveled at the technology, but another part remained cautious. Something about the way the Valians had insisted on this temporary marriage felt calculated. Inside the hall, the Valian Council awaited. Aliens of various species stood in intricate robes, their faces betraying nothing, though Ethan could sense the curiosity and skepticism radiating from them. This was the moment of truth. Lyra straightened, raising her head to meet the council's gaze. Ethan followed suit, awkwardly placing his hand over hers as they stepped forward. The act felt absurd yet necessary. The council's leader, an imposing figure with silver patterns running along his skin, examined them carefully. "You bring a human to act as your spouse?" the leader asked, his voice deep and resonant. Lyra nodded. "Yes, he is capable." "It is temporary but necessary." The ship's interior was even more impressive than the exterior. Metallic walls gleamed under soft lighting, and corridors stretched in ways that seemed almost endless. Technology hummed around them, from floating control panels to transparent floors revealing machinery deep below. As they walked, Lyra began explaining certain protocols. "For the Council, our marriage must appear convincing. Coordinated gestures, matching responses, and mutual respect are all necessary. You may act natural, but subtlety is key." Their first test came almost immediately. The ship's automated systems scanned them as they passed through security checkpoints. Lights glowed along Ethan's arms and chest, scanning for weapons, explosives, or unauthorized items. Lyra's hand brushed against his, a small, grounding gesture, and he found himself focusing on that rather than the hum of alien energy around him. "You are calm," she whispered. "That helps. Humans often panic. It would be suspicious if you did." Stars stretched infinitely, and he could see distant ships maneuvering with precision, forming a silent ballet of technology. For a moment, he forgot the absurdity of his situation. He was in space, aboard a ship belonging to one of the most powerful alien races in the galaxy, and he was here to prove that humans could belong at this table. Lyra studied him closely. "You are different from what I expected," she said softly. "I thought humans would be fragile, impulsive, weak. Any sign that our marriage is not convincing could prevent me from boarding and could damage your planet's reputation. We cannot afford mistakes." Ethan learned the subtle gestures that indicated respect in Valian culture, how to bow his head just so, how to touch her hand lightly at precise moments, and when to speak and when to remain silent. It was strange, even comical at times, but he quickly adapted. Humans had a knack for improvising, for learning fast under pressure. This was no different. That evening, the ship's dining hall presented another challenge. The Valians ate in coordinated silence, moving in perfect harmony with one another. Ethan nearly spilled his food twice, but Lyra quietly guided him, whispering corrections, and he adjusted. The alien crew began to nod at him with subtle approval. Perhaps he could do this after all. Later, as he rested in his quarters, Ethan reflected on the day. Acting as a husband for an alien princess was absurd, yes, but it was also an opportunity. Humans had always been underestimated in the galaxy. Diplomats often dismissed them, engineers scoffed at their methods, and warriors underestimated their ingenuity. Yet here in the vastness of space, he could show what humanity was capable of. A sudden alarm broke his thoughts. Lights flashed along the corridors, and an automated voice echoed through the ship. Lyra appeared instantly at his door. The Council requested an immediate status report. Something may be wrong. The ship's navigational systems displayed a startling message. Another vessel was approaching at high speed. Its signature was irregular, not any known friendly or neutral craft. "Space pirates?" Ethan asked, already analyzing the trajectory. Lyra shook her head. "Unknown, could be rogue traders, could be a political attack. We must be ready." This was real danger, and humans with their ingenuity and courage often shined in such moments. He turned to Lyra. "We'll handle this together." He had come to this galaxy as a representative of Earth, underestimated and underestimated again, and now he had a chance to show that humans were capable, courageous, and clever. As the mysterious vessel drew closer, Ethan felt his pulse quicken, but it was not fear. It was readiness. Humans thrived in the unexpected, adapted when others faltered, and survived when all seemed lost. He would prove that here among the stars, the doors to the control room sealed behind them, the hum of energy filling the space. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes sharp and focused. "We must convince them that we are a real couple," she said, "not just for appearances, but for survival. Let's show them what humans, and humans with Valian allies, can do." And Ethan, pretending to be a husband for an alien princess, would lead the way. The stars outside glittered like 1,000 eyes, watching, and for the first time, Ethan felt that humanity had a place among them. Ethan Carter had expected the challenge of pretending to be an alien princess's husband to be uncomfortable, maybe awkward, but he had not anticipated the full scale of what awaited him aboard the Valian ship. Every corridor hummed with advanced technology, every panel glowed with information in languages he barely recognized, and yet he had to act natural. He had to show not only that he could learn, but that humanity could rise to the galaxy's expectations. Princess Lyra walked beside him, her movements precise and fluid, as if every step was a carefully rehearsed dance. Ethan tried to mimic her, but he stumbled slightly on the polished floor. She glanced at him, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "Careful," she said softly. "Appearance is everything." A slight tilt of the head indicated respect. A light touch on the arm showed attention. A subtle nod conveyed agreement. Each gesture had to be in perfect harmony with the other, or it would look suspicious to the alien crew. They arrived at the first test of their partnership, a meeting with the ship's senior officers. The room was large and circular, with holographic displays floating in midair. Aliens of multiple species, each more unusual than the last, were seated in rigid formations. Their eyes followed Ethan, assessing him as if he were a specimen under examination. Lyra leaned close. "Remember," she whispered, "we must appear convincing, not only for the ceremony, but for their trust. The crew respects strength, intelligence, and composure. You have all three, I hope." He could feel her subtle corrections, a soft inclination of her hand, a nod, a glance. Slowly, he found a rhythm. Humans were good at adaptation, humans were fast learners, humans could thrive where others might falter. One of the officers, a tall alien with metallic skin and 3 eyes, asked directly, "Human, how do you intend to fulfill your duties as the princess's spouse?" "I will adapt to any situation as required." Ethan was fascinated by the technology. Panels and holograms responded instantly to touch, and displays flickered with information about energy distribution, propulsion systems, and shields. For a human engineer, it was like being a child in a candy store, but he kept his focus. This was not a toy, it was a responsibility. Lyra watched him closely as he navigated the systems, occasionally whispering corrections. "Slide your hand this way," she instructed. "The Valians value precision, not speed, accuracy over haste." It was the first sign that he was not merely a human guest, but a capable ally. After the demonstration, Lyra took him to a private observation deck. From there, they could see the galaxy stretched out in every direction. Stars glittered like diamonds, distant planets glowed faintly, and other ships moved gracefully through space. Ethan felt a strange sense of awe. He had seen images of space, had read descriptions, but this was different. This was real. This was life beyond Earth, and he was a part of it. Lyra spoke quietly. "Do you see that?" She pointed to a small cluster of ships in the distance. That is a Valian patrol. They keep these sectors safe, but threats can appear anywhere. You will learn quickly that we cannot rely on appearances alone. Humans often underestimate the dangers, but you seem to understand instinctively. Instead, I see focus, courage, and intelligence. It is unexpected. Ethan practiced, stumbling occasionally, but Lyra's guidance was patient and exact. Hours later, the ship's communications officer delivered a warning. An unknown vessel was approaching rapidly, closing distance at impossible speeds. Lyra's expression became sharp, her eyes narrowing. "This is not routine," she said. "The Council did not expect this. Prepare yourself." Ethan calculated possibilities, suggested maneuvers, and worked with the Valian crew to prepare defenses. His suggestions were unconventional, relying on intuition rather than standard Valian procedure, but they made sense. The crew hesitated, then followed his lead. Lyra observed silently, clearly impressed by his quick thinking. "You are remarkable," she said softly. "Not just a human, but a problem solver. Perhaps there is more to your species than I expected." The approaching ship continued its rapid descent. Ethan instructed the crew on emergency maneuvers, suggesting methods to redirect energy shields and stabilize the vessel under strain. The crew followed his guidance cautiously, and slowly the ship's status began to stabilize. "Excellent," Lyra said quietly, a small smile forming. "You inspire confidence. Humans are adaptable. You have proven that today." Despite the stress, he remained calm, focused, and decisive. The alien officers began to respect him not because of his species, but because of his abilities, intelligence, and composure under pressure. By the time the unknown vessel moved away, the Valian crew had begun to regard Ethan with genuine respect. Lyra gave him a small nod of approval, her expression softening. "You have done well," she said. "More than I expected. I had assumed humans would falter. Instead, you have demonstrated what is possible." Ethan continued to learn, practicing gestures, understanding protocols, and refining his performance as the princess's temporary husband. Each interaction, each correction, each shared task brought him closer to proving that humans could not only survive among the stars, but thrive. As the ship sailed through the dark expanse of space, Ethan stood at the observation deck once more, Lyra beside him. He reflected on the day, the strange proposal, the intense scrutiny, the unexpected test of skill and courage, and he realized something important. Humans had a place in this galaxy, not as weak, inexperienced newcomers, but as capable, intelligent, adaptable beings. And here, on this Valian ship, pretending to be a husband for an alien princess, he was beginning to show that truth to the universe. Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. "Perhaps," she said softly, "humans are not as simple as I believed. Perhaps there is more to you than anyone could expect." "We may be underestimated," he said, "but we always find a way, and today we've just begun." Humans thrived in the unexpected, adapted when others hesitated, and rose when others doubted. The galaxy had not yet seen what humanity could do, and he intended to make sure they never forgot. Ethan Carter had barely begun to catch his breath after the first unexpected challenge aboard the Valian ship when the situation escalated. The unknown vessel that had appeared earlier did not retreat, it accelerated, closing in at alarming speed. Its energy signature was unlike any Ethan had ever seen. It was hostile, organized, and intelligent. This was no ordinary patrol or routine threat. "Prepare for potential engagement," Lyra said, her voice steady but tense. She moved with precise grace, the way a leader always did, even when danger was near. Ethan noticed that despite her calm, her hands were slightly clenched. She trusted him to be more than just a ceremonial spouse, and that trust pressed heavily on him. He stepped toward the control panels, scanning data streams. "Their shields are weak on the left flank," he observed. "If we can redirect energy to our rear thrusters and adjust the shield matrix, we can create a narrow corridor to escape or maneuver. Our objective is to survive, and sometimes that means bending rules others take as absolute." Slowly, they began implementing his suggestions. Ethan's mind raced, calculating every possibility. The approaching vessel was agile and well-armed, but the Valian ship was massive and had unmatched energy reserves. The key was to exploit the unknown enemy's overconfidence and predictability. Humans were known for their intuition, for reading patterns others ignored. And in this moment, that instinct mattered more than any protocol. "Divert 20% of forward energy to lateral shields," Ethan instructed. We can create a temporary blind spot for their sensors. Then we maneuver diagonally through their trajectory. Timing is critical. Do not hesitate. Their species was not accustomed to improvisation. Their training emphasized caution over initiative. But Lyra's quiet affirmation gave them courage. "Trust him," she said. "Humans have a different logic. It works." He relished the challenge, knowing that the lives aboard this ship and the reputation of humanity depended on his judgment. The alien vessel fired first. Energy blasts tore through space, narrowly missing the Valian ship. Alarms blared, warning lights flashed, and the hum of machinery grew louder as shields struggled to absorb impact. Ethan moved quickly, recalculating energy distribution, rerouting power, and adjusting shields in real time. "Ready for maneuver in 3, 2, 1, he called out. The ship shifted, responding to his commands. The enemy vessel miscalculated the movement, overshooting their previous trajectory. For a moment, the unknown attacker faltered, giving the Valians a chance to retaliate. "Direct all energy to forward plasma turrets," Ethan shouted. "Target the junction points on their outer hull, non-lethal but disabling." Lyra looked at Ethan with clear admiration. You think differently," she said softly. "Most humans would panic, argue, or run. You analyze, you adapt, you act. And sometimes we succeed where others hesitate." The ship was stable, but it required careful management to prevent further complications. They reached the engineering deck, where a group of Valian engineers worked tirelessly. Ethan quickly evaluated the situation, identifying weak points in the shield matrix and minor power fluctuations. His suggestions were precise, actionable, and effective. Slowly, the engineers began to see him not just as a human, but as a capable problem solver. "Adjust the plasma conduits along the secondary shield array," Ethan instructed. "It will stabilize the energy flow. We can reinforce the main shields without sacrificing maneuverability." "That is not standard procedure." "You are more than a temporary husband," she said quietly. "You are a true partner, one I can rely upon." Ethan's pulse quickened, not from fear but from determination. Humans thrived in these moments, in challenges that required quick thinking and courage under pressure. Lyra spoke softly beside him. "If they attack again, you will have to make decisions that go against our standard protocols. Together, prepare countermeasures on the upper port side. Timing is critical. Wait for my signal." Ethan's strategy relied not on brute force, but on precision, adaptation, and the ability to predict the enemy's moves, skills humans excelled at, even in a galaxy that doubted them. As the battle continued, Ethan and Lyra moved seamlessly as a team. He suggested maneuvers and adjustments. She communicated commands to the crew with authority and clarity. Their partnership, though temporary in title, became genuine in function. Together, they maximized the ship's potential and minimized risk. Finally, the enemy vessel, unable to adapt to the unconventional strategies, retreated beyond sensor range. Alarms ceased, shields stabilized, and the hum of machinery returned to normal. The ship was safe, for now. Lyra turned to Ethan, her expression a mix of relief and admiration. "You have done more than I expected," she said. "You have proven your intellect, your courage, and your adaptability. I underestimated humans. Humans survive in impossible situations, adapt when others hesitate, and find solutions when others see none. That's who we are." He had earned their trust, and in doing so elevated the reputation of humanity in the galaxy. Later, as the ship sailed through calmer sectors, Ethan and Lyra stood together on the observation deck, watching distant stars drift by. The weight of responsibility hung heavy, but so did a sense of accomplishment. Humans were underestimated, often dismissed easily, but in moments like this, their ingenuity and courage shone brighter than any star. "You have changed my perception," Lyra said softly. "Humans are not weak, not simple, not impulsive. Your species has potential I did not expect. And today, we've done exactly that." And here, among the stars, aboard a Valian ship, he would continue to prove that humanity belonged in the galaxy, not as weak observers, but as capable, ingenious, and courageous beings. The stars outside shimmered, silent witnesses to their journey. Ethan felt ready for whatever lay ahead. He was no longer just a human pretending to be a husband. He was a problem solver, a protector, and a representative of his species. Humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning to be recognized, and he would ensure that their story was one of strength, intelligence, and courage. As the ship continued its course, Ethan and Lyra prepared for what was to come, side by side. The galaxy had not yet tested them fully, but when it did, humans would rise to the challenge. And Ethan Carter, temporary husband or not, would lead the way. The calm that followed the skirmish with the unknown vessel was brief. Ethan Carter had barely allowed himself a moment to rest when another alarm rang through the ship. This time, the warning was internal. Sensors indicated unusual activity in a restricted section of the vessel, one that even most Valian officers were not allowed to enter. Lyra appeared beside him almost immediately, her eyes narrowed. "Something is wrong," she said, her voice tense. "This is not an external threat. Someone aboard the ship is acting against us." Humans were adaptable and capable, but betrayal among allies was always dangerous. He followed Lyra through the corridors as she explained. "The Valian Empire is cautious. Certain areas of this ship hold critical cargo and classified technology. If it is compromised, the Council's trust in me and in our human allies could be lost forever." Humans often excelled in detecting patterns and noticing what others overlooked. Perhaps that skill could help them here. "Do we know who might be responsible?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "Not yet, but the sensors show movement inconsistent with normal operations. Someone has the knowledge to bypass security protocols." Humans might not have had the same experience as Valians, but Ethan could see things logically, predict possible weak points, and notice patterns that alien minds might take for granted. "Someone is hiding in this section," he said. "We need to isolate them before they access the cargo or cause damage." Humans are less obvious than the rest. Perhaps you can anticipate what the intruder intends. "I can predict where they are heading next. Follow my lead, but remain discreet." As they approached a junction, Ethan whispered, "The intruder will emerge on the upper maintenance deck. That's where they'll try to access the cargo." A figure clad in a dark uniform, unfamiliar to both humans and most Valians, was attempting to override a control panel. The individual's movements were precise, skilled, and deliberate. Whoever this was, they had knowledge and intent, and they were dangerous. Ethan motioned to Lyra to remain silent. "We can't confront them directly yet. We need to predict their next move and cut them off." "Step away from the panel," she commanded. The intruder hesitated, then bolted toward a side corridor. Ethan reacted immediately, calculating the most efficient intercept. He moved swiftly, human reflexes allowing him to cut off the escape route with precision. The intruder skidded to a halt, realizing they could not outrun both a Valian princess and a determined human. "You are not authorized to be here," Lyra said firmly. "Explain yourself." Humans survive by understanding problems quickly, adapting, and finding solutions where others fail. We may be underestimated, but we are not weak. And right now, you are a problem we will solve together, by stopping you from endangering everyone aboard this ship." Finally, with a reluctant sigh, they raised their hands. "Very well," they said. "I will cooperate, but know this, there are others, more like me. You may have stopped me, but the risk is far from over." "Then we will deal with them too," he said. "One problem at a time." Had they succeeded, the Council would have faced scandal, and the Valian Empire's trust in their allies, including humans, would have been severely damaged. Ethan listened carefully, analyzing the implications. "This is a problem of strategy and logic," he said quietly. "We need to secure the cargo, isolate conspirators, and ensure the ship's systems are uncompromised. We can do this. The intruder has given us information we can use to prevent a disaster." Ethan guided Lyra and a small security team through the safest routes, avoiding potential traps and monitoring energy conduits that had been tampered with. His analytical skills allowed them to detect subtle anomalies the Valians themselves had overlooked. As they reached the cargo bay, Ethan noticed a series of override panels the intruder had left partially activated. He quickly recalibrated them, restoring normal function and reinforcing security measures. "We need to lock down these systems," he instructed. "Any attempt to bypass them will trigger an alert immediately." Humans might not have had the centuries of tradition the Valians possessed, but they had something equally powerful: ingenuity, courage, and quick thinking under pressure. Once the cargo was secured, Ethan and Lyra confronted the intruder again. "The Council will decide your fate," Lyra said. "But know this, you underestimated humans. You underestimated teamwork, intelligence, and resolve. That is your true error. Perhaps humans do have their place among the stars." Throughout the process, Ethan's human perspective proved invaluable. He anticipated weaknesses, suggested improvements, and helped the Valians understand how adaptability and quick thinking could strengthen their protocols. As night fell aboard the ship, Ethan and Lyra stood together on the observation deck once more. The stars outside stretched endlessly, a silent reminder of both the dangers and the opportunities that lay ahead. "You have changed more than I expected," Lyra said quietly. "Not only in action, but in perception. You have proven that humans are capable, intelligent, and reliable. I trust you completely." Trust is earned, and humans have always earned it under pressure. We rise to challenges, solve problems, and survive. That's what we do, whether we are underestimated or overlooked. Others will test you, and the galaxy may not be as forgiving as this ship has been. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would meet them together, and humanity would continue to prove its worth among the stars. As the ship sailed onward, Ethan prepared himself. The galaxy had yet to see the full extent of what humans could achieve, and when it did, it would not forget the ingenuity, courage, and spirit of a species that refused to be underestimated. Lyra glanced at him one last time before they returned to their duties. "You are extraordinary human, not because of your species, but because of who you are. Do not forget that." For Ethan Carter and humanity, the galaxy was not a place of doubt or limitation. It was a canvas of opportunity, waiting for those willing to adapt, to think, and to rise. The stars shimmered silently outside, witnesses to a growing legend. Humans had begun to prove their value, and Ethan was at the forefront. This was more than a mission, more than a temporary role as a husband. This was humanity's chance to shine among the stars, and he would ensure they did. The Valian ship glided through space, its systems now secure, but tension still lingered in the corridors. Ethan Carter had faced unknown vessels, hostile attacks, and even betrayal within the ship, yet the most important challenge lay ahead. The intruder's warnings about others meant that the threat was far from over. Every moment demanded focus, intelligence, and courage. Humanity had survived and adapted countless times, and Ethan knew that now was the time to prove that once again. Lyra stood at his side, watching the stars. "The intruder mentioned others," she said softly. "We cannot be certain how many or where they might strike next, but I trust your judgment. Humans, you think differently than we do, and that perspective may save us." Humans thrived in adversity, not because they were naturally stronger, but because they were adaptable, inventive, and relentless in pursuit of solutions. The galaxy often underestimated them, and that was an advantage he intended to use. They entered the control room together, where the Valian crew was monitoring sensors and systems. Ethan's eyes scanned the data streams. He noticed unusual energy fluctuations in the outer hull, small, precise, almost undetectable, but indicative of tampering. Someone was attempting to infiltrate the ship remotely, testing security measures and probing for weaknesses. "We need to act immediately," Ethan said. "If we can isolate the intrusion points and reroute power through redundant systems, we can block their access before they compromise the ship." Humans had always excelled in improvisation, in analyzing incomplete information and devising solutions on the fly. His instincts, combined with logical calculations, allowed him to anticipate the intruders' moves before they happened. The ship shuddered slightly as the intruders tested their attack, sending energy pulses along the hull. Ethan adjusted the shield matrix, redirecting power to vulnerable sections and neutralizing the threat. The crew followed his lead, impressed by his precision and calm under pressure. "Humans can be remarkable," Lyra murmured, her tone a mix of admiration and relief. "You think in ways we do not. And right now, we're keeping everyone aboard safe because we do it together." "Prepare for boarding," Lyra said. "They will attempt to breach our hull. Prepare countermeasures on port and starboard. Use automated drones to intercept incoming boarding pods." Ethan's quick thinking and human intuition had turned the tide before the enemy even realized it. "Your strategy works," Lyra said quietly. "The intruders did not anticipate this." Small vessels darted around the ship, attempting to find weak points. Ethan coordinated with the crew to adjust shields dynamically, reroute power to critical sections, and deploy decoy signals to confuse the attackers. Each action was precise, calculated, and effective. The Valians began to rely on his judgment, recognizing that his human perspective brought advantages even advanced civilizations could not ignore. Lyra moved beside him, observing as he guided the crew through the defense. "You are extraordinary," she said. "Not because of your species, but because of your mind, your courage, your instinct. You inspire confidence. Once we neutralize their propulsion, we can force them to retreat." Lyra's expression softened with admiration. "You have proven what I suspected. Humans are not weak, they are not impulsive, they are capable, ingenious, and brave. And you embody all of that. And we adapt when everything else fails." His presence transformed panic into action, hesitation into strategy, and fear into confidence. As they repaired systems, Ethan noticed a series of encrypted messages that had been sent from the enemy vessels. They hinted at a larger plan, a coordinated attack targeting the Valian Empire itself. He realized that this was not just a test of survival, but an opportunity to prove humanity's value on a grander scale. "Lyra," he said, "we need to relay this information to the Council. Humans can help predict their next moves and prevent further attacks. We can use strategy, logic, and anticipation to protect the Empire. Then we will do it together. Your insight has saved the ship and may save many more." Humans were now being recognized not as inexperienced newcomers, but as capable allies whose ingenuity and courage could shape outcomes on a galactic scale. Later, standing on the observation deck, Ethan and Lyra watched the stars drift past. Silence settled over them, but it was not empty. It was filled with the knowledge that they had faced immense challenges, overcome threats, and emerged stronger, not just as temporary partners, but as a team built on trust, respect, and shared courage. "You have done more than act as a temporary husband," Lyra said softly. "You have proven humanity's value to the galaxy. You have saved lives, protected this ship, and shown ingenuity beyond what most species could imagine. I am grateful to have you here." Perhaps now they will see. The stars outside stretched infinitely, silent witnesses to a species that had long been underestimated, now beginning to shine in the galaxy's eyes. For Ethan Carter, the temporary role as a husband had become something more. He had proven that humans were capable, resourceful, and courageous. He had earned trust, respect, and admiration, not through force alone, but through intelligence, strategy, and unwavering determination. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer in doubt. Lyra stood beside him, her hand brushing lightly against his. "You have changed more than just this ship," she said quietly. "You have changed how my people see humans. Perhaps even how I see them." Humanity's journey among the stars was just starting, and he would continue to show that humans could rise to any challenge, adapt to any situation, and excel where others doubted them. The galaxy had underestimated humans for too long. That would never happen again. And as Ethan stood beside Lyra watching the stars, he realized that this partnership, born out of necessity, forged through trust, and proven through action, was more than a ceremonial arrangement. It was a testament to the ingenuity, courage, and spirit of humanity itself. The stars outside shone like 1,000 watchful eyes, and for the first time, Ethan felt that humans had truly earned their place among them. They were not weak, they were not naive, and they were not to be overlooked. They were resourceful, intelligent, and brave. And through one human's courage and ingenuity, the galaxy had been reminded of that undeniable truth. As the Valian ship sailed safely into open space, Ethan Carter felt the weight of responsibility ease slightly. They had survived attacks, thwarted betrayal, and protected a vital vessel. Humans had proven their worth, not through force alone, but through strategy, intuition, and the ability to rise under pressure. Lyra turned to him one final time. "The Council will remember this day," she said. "And humanity will be remembered as well. You have ensured that. And today, we've shown the galaxy exactly who we are." And as the stars stretched endlessly beyond the hull, Ethan felt certain of one thing. Humanity's place among them was no longer uncertain. It was undeniable, respected, and earned through courage, ingenuity, and unwavering determination.